Hi, I'm Dan Sweeney, the Director of the Institute for Enterprise Ethics at the Daniels College of Business here on the University of Denver campus. We just finished a very exciting conversation among about 25 chief ethics and compliance officers, corporate counsels, and independent advisors to corporations on the topic of social media and the ethics and compliance program. We've asked two of the participants in that program to stay with us and to share with you some of their observations on this discussion. We have first with us Kirsten Liston, Senior Compliance Advisor with SAI Global, a leading professional services firm providing ethics and compliance solutions to corporations around the world. Welcome, Kirsten. Nice to have you with us.
Thank you for having me.
And we have Brad Friedman with us. Brad is the president and founder of the Friedman Group, an inbound social media consulting organization serving professional associations and small businesses. Brad, thanks for joining us. Good to have you with us. So, let me start with Kirsten. From the discussion we had this morning, what appears to be the most important concerns or questions that these executives have on their minds that they're dealing with regarding social media and the ethics and compliance program?
Sure. Well, I would say that all of the executives recognize that social media is really bringing sweeping changes to the business world. You know, once upon a time, a company could really lock down its image, could lock down the way it communicated with people, could restrict people from saying things that would be negative about the company's image or somehow detracted from what the company wanted to portray. Now with social media, anybody with a camera phone, anybody with an email account, anybody with a Facebook account can get online. They can release confidential information, they can release product information, they can communicate financial information to the markets when they shouldn't. And the companies are realizing that they have to be flexible and creative and thoughtful in terms of how they respond to it, put things in place to educate people about their responsibilities to the company without becoming so punitive that it really turns people off.
Good, thanks. Brad,
Yeah.
what did you take away from that conversation?
Well, I thought one of the concerns, I guess, would be to be able to keep your finger on the pulse of this fast-paced changing technology while trying to keep things under control. So it was a matter of trying to keep up and trying to protect the business so that employees knew what their responsibilities were, protecting trademarks, protecting work product, protecting all that sensitive information. But I think these people were smart enough to recognize that they had to try to keep up with the technology in order to keep up with all the activity that was occurring in the different social networks.
Yeah.
Good, very helpful. So, Brad, after hearing the discussion this morning, do you think most of the companies represented here in this conversation are well prepared to deal with these issues?
I think most of the companies in the room actually were well prepared, and we had some good examples of that with one of the participants talking about how they're concerned about protecting the company and protecting trade secrets and protecting the product, but they're also training their people to think about social media in a way that also protects them. And this is a company that is global and their people travel all the time. And we talked a little bit about the social networks where you check in and you tell people where you're going and where you're going to be, and how they train their people to think about doing that or whether or not they're going to do that based upon their own personal safety as well as thinking about protecting the company. And so when you're thinking about those kinds of things, you're on top of the subject, I think.
Good,
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Kirsten, what do you think?
So I thought we heard some good examples today of different activities that people had done that I think are concrete steps towards addressing social media. Some are writing policies. We had a woman talk about how it's important to write not just a list of do's and don'ts, but to really set a framework for employees so they understand how to grapple with these issues. We had several people talk about monitoring social media traffic, not in the sense of Big Brother monitoring, what's being written on the network, but more when someone publishes something, having the marketing department pay attention to what's being said about the company, how does it reflect the brand, and working with the marketing department to when those things come in to respond to them, to take a look at them, to see if they represent an opportunity for education. One other thing I thought was really interesting was a discussion about how to respond when something does happen. We started with an example given by one of our professors of a student of his who had been fired for posting something critical of her employer on a blog 10 years ago. Somebody made the point, and I thought it was an excellent point, that if someone published that same thing today, the company might not take such drastic measures because companies have realized these things happen, and some at least treat them as opportunities for education, where then we heard from one woman where they sit down with the employee and they say, why did you do this? Why did you feel this was your only outlet? You know, did you not know there was someone you could go to talk to about that? So I thought that was useful.
Good. Let me go back to Kirsten on the next question here. From what you heard this morning from this variety of people, what would you suggest were the most important pieces of advice and counsel you might offer to companies such as the ones that were sitting around this table, and I think they're representative, who are working on these social media issues in their organization? What ought to be on their agenda?
Sure. So a couple of thoughts come to mind. The first one is that command and control is over. There's really the days are gone when you could lock things down or absolutely control what employees said or even know what employees are saying. So that it's important to communicate with employees about it. Understanding that it's such a fast-moving area, it's helpful to communicate at the level of principles, teach employees how to think about the area so that when they face a new situation, they're not just running through a list of do or don't do, they're really engaging with it from a base of how do I do this responsibly? What does the company expect from me?
Good.
That's what I would
Brad,
say.
what would you suggest?
I think the counsel I would give these companies, and any company really, is to have social media policies in place, have them be very specific as to what employees can and can't do. And I think that it's important then, once you have those policies in place, to train your employees. So I would say put the policies in place and then train and educate your employees. And then I think really the most important advice that I could give is that this all really starts at the top and it flows down. So the senior executives of the company have to embrace this technology, embrace what's going on in the social media world, and they have to really walk the walk so that their employees will do the same thing.
Yeah. You know, I would add to that something that occurred to me while you were speaking is don't forget to use social media in teaching people about social media. It doesn't all have to be policies and training. It can be messages on company intranets or blogs or Yammer or whatever people are using. It's getting kind of a regular stream of communications to keep this top of mind so that people know what's expected.
Terrific. So did you enjoy the conversation this morning? Did you find it interesting and exciting, and you learn a lot?
I would say very much. I thought it was it was a great group of people, a very distinguished group of attendees, and then such a great level of discussion with really wide-ranging viewpoints, really thoughtful takes on what's appropriate, what we should be thinking about, etc. So I thought it was great.
Oh, I agree. I thought it was a great conversation. I thought the room had very bright, thoughtful people, and yeah, it was wonderful.
Yeah.
Good. Well, thank you both for sharing your observations and comments with us. We appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for inviting us.